Hey guys, welcome back to Garage Dads. We're here at the Phillips Ranch. I'm with my good friend, a guy who I respect very much, outdoor dad, Seth Phillips. How are you, Seth?
Awesome, man. Thank you, James. I really appreciate you coming over today and giving me the opportunity to connect with you on this and share a little bit, learn from you. And yeah, man, we've talked about this for a little while. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah. I've been excited, been a little nervous. Honestly, I was like, oh gosh, he's like, it's like, I feel like when I talk to you about anything, I mean, we've talked numerous things over the years and I'm like, he's just more intellectual speaking than me. So
I don't know about that, man.
It's definitely been a little bit, made me a little bit nervous. I won't lie.
Well, don't be, right? I feel like this kind of stemmed from us sitting together at our daughter's gymnastics, and we hadn't connected in a little while, hadn't seen each other, and so we just kind of jumped into conversation, and you had a lot of questions about duck hunting and just kind of got caught up, and of course I was asking about the podcast and how it was going, and you mentioned that you took a break from it, and we're just trying to kind of reset and spend time with your family and just kind of wanted to refocus a little bit. And then but you mentioned you want to start back up again. You were like, hey, would you want to come on and do this with me? And my initial reaction was like, no, man, like I'm typically, I'm not a big social media guy. I don't really like to put my stuff out there in the public. Not private to the point where it's like, I want to hide from people, but at the same time, like, I kind of feel like, who cares, right? Who's going to care to hear what I'm got going on or my story, but or what I can share? But it's like, you see something different in that, and like, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things I was like, and of course I know that you kind of introduced me to the waterfowl hunting, and that was a cool thing. I've always just deer hunted and done a little bit of other hunting, not a whole lot, but it's just main focus was deer hunting. And at that time I was really getting burnt out on deer hunting, and it was I needed something different. And for some reason, like I said, something jumped in my algorithm because I was just duck hunting videos, and how you watch one, 99 of the next 100 are going to be the same. So, just talking to you about that, I know I kind of probably wore you out a little bit on it, but I'm like, brother, I think I mean, we've all got things to learn, and you kept saying, I'm a novice. And I'm just like, if he's a novice and I just dug into it deep, and that's all I wanted to know about. And I'm like, Seth knows more than anybody I've ever met about duck hunting.
So you probably haven't talked to too many people then.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, and it was nice and I'm like, this dude can talk about anything. So, I probably kind of wore you out with like, you might be missing out on the bit. And, we've discussed other things, and it wasn't just duck hunting. So, and it was just like, you are one of those guys who can look at things from a different perspective, even if, you see things from other people's perspective, even if it's not your own, or things that you agree with or disagree with. It's always great talking to you about anything, man. Yeah. And so thanks for having us out. The studio took a little bit of a spill with the leak. That's the downfall to it's truly in my garage.
Yeah.
So I know that you said that you were ready, and I was like, well, my garage isn't. So thanks for having us out here to your beautiful place, and, talk to your beautiful bride and your two children. So just kind of tell us about, give everybody a background on your family dynamic.
Gladly. Before we do that, would you mind if I just do two things? Not my podcast, but I kind of had a couple things in mind here. So first of all, I don't know if you've ever opened a podcast in prayer before, but if you're open to it,
yeah,
I'd love to offer up just a quick prayer for us, and then I've got a gift for you. So if you'll just join me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for another beautiful day. Thank you for the opportunity to connect with James this morning. Lord, we ask that you please search our hearts, our minds, our souls, and please guide our mouths to glorify you in what we share today. This shouldn't be about us. It should be about you. It should be about teaching others, other men that are finding challenges in fatherhood and being a husband and being a business owner or an employee, or just the struggles that we're all dealing with. I hope this touches at least one person and gives a little bit of hope, or gives a little bit of clarity, and that we can honor you in all that we do. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So
thank you for that, brother.
No, I genuinely, I mean that, right? I mean, I think that one of the big things that I struggle with, and maybe we can get into this more later, is selfishness, right? And I feel like my best self when I'm being selfless, when I'm pouring into others, when I'm useful and I'm genuinely making a difference. And so a big focus for me, and I stumble, I trip all the time and get caught up in selfishness. And sometimes it goes on for longer than other times when I catch it, or I have someone that's, a brother or my wife or someone that's, that's helping me, like, hey, you're kind of spiraling on this and getting pretty selfish with it again, or whatever. But I think the goal for me is to be useful, to be helpful, and serve. And so I'm wearing this hat today. I got you one of the serve hats, and so this comes from Rich Froning Farms. Not an affiliate or sponsor or anything like that, but it's he's a husband, he's a father, he's a Christian. He is one of the winningest CrossFit athletes. I'm not a huge follower of CrossFit. I do it a little bit, but never done it in a CrossFit gym or anything to that effect. But when you listen to Rich, he also does podcasts. He's been on a few that I've listened to, and he's just, he's honoring the Lord. He's honoring his family. He's pouring into other men that he knows are dealing with challenges. He knows that, he wants to embrace real things. And so he's down in Tennessee, and he started a bison farm and, elk hunts out west, and challenges himself to, we're talking like 30 day backpack, real hunts. Right. And it's all about the journey in that case. And so, I wear the serve hat, and no one's ever asked me, like, serve, like, you'd think military, right? And I think that's excellent. Thank you for all the men and women that have fought and sacrificed for our freedom in this country. But this is more about serving the Lord and serving your family, serving your wife, serving your children. And so, it's a message, but I want to start out with.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I guess I gotta put this bad boy on. Hopefully
you don't, man. Don't. You don't have to mess with it right now. But
now I feel like I got to, and I just hope that it fits my ginormous head
for you. You can adjust it, man.
Just like, please let her fit.
It's that Richard's.
I gotta go to the end for me. Yeah.
How about it?
I gotta make it fit after that.
Make it fit.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get this microphone going. I think it might be me. I was talking about Greg and how he always has to adjust the microphone and everything. Maybe I'm the same way. I just usually don't touch it. So, Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for the hat. And I know that we've had some discussions, and I don't know if you caught my most recent one, but I was in a struggle as a husband and a dad where it was like very, very selfish with what was going on in my life is all that mattered. And I needed a reset.
Yeah.
So, and I know that we've discussed things, and you've directed me to some great spiritual leaders, and I've listened, and it's been like this morning I told you I've listened to that podcast, that one 3 times now.
Give him a shout out, dude.
Yeah,
give him a shout out. Joby Martin, Church of 1122, Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
Right.
To the Church of 1122. So Joby Martin is stand firm and act like a man. So that has definitely been a great tool for me to get through. I was struggling, and I didn't realize it. And it was one of those things that my wife was struggling with, taking on everything. I left it all on her for a lot of selfish reasons. And so that kind of helped me reset on that side of things. So thanks for that. And, shout out. Hopefully they'll listen in, or if not, somebody hears that story, and it was a great tool for me. And it sounds like you are still the same, with the conversations we've had and following along with them. So thank you.
I've got to thank Trevor Gladle. So he kind of understood my background, being an outdoorsman, and he was like, go to the Hillsborough Church of Christ together, and he's like, you should check this guy out. And I'd seen a couple of his just like reels or clips or whatever, but I hadn't dug in. And so from then on, it was the actual sermon that goes out every Sunday night or Monday morning on the Church of 1122, and then the Deepen podcast. And then since then, he's joined a daily devotional with a guy named Kyle Thompson from Undaunted Life, also a podcast. And they do like a forging table. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's a like quick 5-minute daily devotional. Either Joby or Kyle or maybe a guest are doing that. And then more recently, Joby joined a guy named Denny Thompson, who is like an elite quarterbacks coach. And they're having a lot of different guests on, many from, the college and pro football spectrum, from players to, announcers. Reese Davis, Kirk Herbstreit was on there. And the alignment really is them sharing their faith, and then the challenges that they deal with as men. And they, some of them, their testimonies are kind of like what they worked through, some of the things that they're dealing with at the moment and they need some help on. But all of it. I want to be careful with, whether it's Rich Froning or Joby Martin or who it's like, we don't want to create false idols in other men, right? But I think that as men, we're looking for guidance, and some people are starting from different places. Some kids, some men grew up in Sunday school and they grew that relationship with the Lord early on. If you're like me, I kind of went to church when Grandma made me and kind of went through the motions, but never developed a relationship. And then, you go through your teens and 20s as the Lord of your own life, and you're always looking to yourself for the answers and putting the pressure on yourself and giving yourself a pat on the back when you get the wins. And that's going to burn out, man. Like you're gonna have things that you can't solve, and you're gonna have moments where people rely on you, and you're just, you feel all the pressure, the stress, the anxiety, everything builds up. A lot of times men go to vices and escapism in those moments, whatever the choice is: alcohol, drugs, porn, you name it, right? Like whatever is going to help them escape that feeling and feel better. And obviously it's not the solution. And so it took some challenging moments in my life to go, okay, I don't have this, right? Joby says it all the time. It's like the most dangerous words a man can say is, I got this. And it's like, no, I don't got this, right? Like I need help. And there's only one place I can get that. And that's it starts with a relationship with the Lord, in my opinion, right? And, before really growing in my faith, if someone would have talked like I'm talking right now, I would have instantly tuned them out. Like, oh, come on, man, that's weak mindset. You can't, right? You can't, just own it, right? Go work harder. Go stop making excuses. Just go attain it. And but a lot of things are out of our control. And there's going to be a lot of things that pop up for us, especially in the stage in life we're in, with children and parents. And we're kind of on the spectrum where we're helping take care of things and more responsibilities and stuff. And so, I feel like God's always on time, and my relationship grew with the Lord at the right time for him and for me. And, I get more confident in sharing, my testimony, those connections with someone that is an expert in scripture and, a professional preacher. I can't go through the Bible right now and quote scripture. I've got some of my favorite verses, and maybe some of those are selfish because they align with what I like, right? Rise, Peter, kill and eat, because I'm a hunter, right? So I got to like that one. But it's like, I feel like it's a great place to start when we want to be great husbands and fathers and all that. So I hijacked your podcast, man. I totally,
dude, you're good. This is what I'm talking about.
Skip the intro, right?
This is why I talk about you. Would be the easiest. I don't want to say the easiest thing, because it's not easy, but the most natural. Like you just did your first couple minutes on a podcast, and I'm listening to you like, man, I'd listen to this guy's podcast, but just kind of like what you were saying about just kind of the same way. It was never important for, it was like going to church was a chore, or going with grandparents. They wanted us to go. Never did I ever go with my parents. Never was that a thing seen. And, I started in my teenage years to, it started to get, I don't want to, this sounds bad. Maybe sounds bad. It started to get cool, because it was not just old men sitting up there, screaming and yelling, "You're going to hell if this," where it became more of a cool, fun thing. Yeah. So that's what originally drew me in, and my good friend Brett Kissling, it kind of helped me out with that. and getting there, I've always, I was getting to the point where it was like, well, I'm going to pray to God. I believe there is a God, and I'm going to pray to him, but I'm only going to pray when I need something. I'm going to pray for things to happen good for me. And I had a real struggle a couple of years ago, and I was lost. And I remember I stopped praying for things to go away and started praying for the strength, because that's when I realized, sometimes stuff's like the whole "this too shall pass" thing. Bad thing, you're going to go through struggles. It's always good. There's always going to be challenges, and things are good. They're not always going to be good. So enjoy those, embrace those. And I was looking for something. When I started praying for, the strength to get through those challenges, that's when I became more invested, and realized I was selfishly praying just for things to go away, but I didn't have to do anything. And that helped me get through one of the tougher battles in my life.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. We're saved by grace through faith, right? And if we know that, then we can stay whole all the time, because we understand that the blessings that occur in our lives don't necessarily come from us. We didn't earn it. And when the challenges, the struggles come up, they don't necessarily come from us. Now, we're still have our worldly responsibilities, right? You can't go and overindulge in certain things and think that life's going to go well, right? There's certain things that you can look back to in scripture that will guide us in moderation and some of those points, right? But and this is, for me, James, this is kind of a little bit of parroting what I'm learning through Joby Martin and through our local preacher Brad. And it's not, God's not anti-effort, but I think that he is anti-earning, right? But to your point, like, those trials and tribulations are where we're being forged for the next thing, what he's ultimately going to use us for. And it's up to us to say, like, are we going to be selfless in service and give ourselves to that and pray that he guides our heart and our feet and gives us someone to help today? Or are we going to, like what a lot of people do, and I've been there, man, of praying that something good will happen to me, or I'm going to get this opportunity, I'm going to kill this deer, right? Like, hey, man, if you could, I've been in the stand for a lot of time now. I'm getting pretty worn out by it. I've said,
I've earned it now. I've done it. I've put in my time.
Put in my time, man. It's my, and so I think that God is definitely anti-entitlement, right? We're not entitled to anything. Right, death and taxes, as the joke goes, right? But yeah, I appreciate you sharing, and we just don't know where men are in their lives when we connect with them, because we do a really good job of putting a face on in public. And so you connect with someone at your kid's basketball practice, you're like, "Hey, man, how you doing?" "I'm good." It's like, unless you really know them, you might not pick up on it, right? So sometimes it's helpful to have a deeper conversation with them to understand, like, you really good, or are you just saying that? And what level of good, if you are good, what level of good are you right now, right? And how can we support each other through, through.
Yeah, I've definitely been there where it's like, yeah, I'm good. And then sometimes I go the opposite, and I'm like, I dump my problems on everybody else. I sometimes get worse about that, where it's like, some people care and they genuinely are asking you how you doing, and then there's other people who are just asking it because it's just how you start a conversation, and so I get that mixed a lot. Again, thank you for sharing all that. Thank you for being patient with me. I guess it's my first time podcasting. It's my first time podcasting on the road.
Yeah.
And again, thanks for having us out here, and just kind of give us a little bit of your family dynamic. Tell us about your kids and your beautiful bride.
Boy. So, I'm just so blessed to have connected with the woman that I did in this world. I think who we marry is one of the most important things that happens. And, I think back to when I met Jordan Ann in college. I'll just be frank with you. I was looking for a cute blonde girl with a cute butt and, and just like, obviously not a train wreck, but, just fun, and that's who she was. And we grew a friendship, and before we ever started dating, and I feel like that was important, God's timing, when we met each other. And I was definitely not a godly person at that point in my life, but I think that God still definitely had a hand in that. And so we've been married for 11 years. This June will be 12. And we have 2 children, a 9-year-old son and just turned 9, and a 6.5-year-old daughter. And then, our family dynamics and background, where we come from, is pretty like organized chaos, beautiful, beautiful chaos. Both of us come from divorced families. My mother was remarried. My father wasn't. Jordan Ann's mother was remarried, and father was remarried. And so we don't have like family trees. We have like family spider webs where there's, half siblings and step siblings and in-laws and some outlaws. You get like the whole mixture, and that's on both sides. And so, I can't say that I've seen it, but there's a movie, Four Christmases. It's like, there for a while when my mom was still in Ohio. She's in Florida now. But, there was like that Four Christmas dynamic that before we had kids even, or maybe even when the kids were a little bit younger, that we were kind of running and doing all that kind of stuff. And so still do a little bit, but yeah, it's interesting. What it truly is a blessing, because we have so many different personalities and skill sets, and it's kind of like we have this family value and belief and ethos, within in the Phillips household, but even in the bigger family units, that it's like, okay, we're all moving in this direction. And as people come in, as new married in-laws, it's like, all right, this is the direction we're coming. You better come. You better come along with us. And even siblings. I just have one sibling, an older sister. Love her. Not incredibly close with her. She also lives in Florida with her family. Jordan Ann has, came from a big family with a brother and sister, and then a couple half sisters, and then again, I mentioned the step. And we don't look at it like that, right? We're just siblings. We're just family, and it's unique, the support system and kind of how people come together on certain things. A few of us have kids the same age, and so we're coaching together. We're getting ready to be at the ballpark this summer, and we're going to have, who would be my brother-in-law and Jordan Ann's ex-stepfather has a son on the team. We're coaching together, and everyone just kind of, finding what we get along about versus the things that we might not, and trying to do our best to grow these kids. So that's kind of the family background dynamic. I'm not originally from Hillsboro. I'm originally from small little area, Lily Chapel, Ohio, I'd like to claim. For those of you in the Southern Ohio, Hillsboro area, I'm trying to think of a comparable crossroad that just had a church and a granary. Help me out there, James. Newmarket's bigger, right?
Newmarket could be its own city.
Yeah, right.
That's what I was told. Big city in Newmarket.
Yeah, not a state route going through Lily Chapel, but not far from West Jefferson, not far from London, Ohio, not far from even like Grove City and Hilliard. Yeah. So Flatlander. I'm doing my best to become a hillbilly, right?
You'll get there.
I've totally leaned into it. I know I'll always be a transplant, and that's that. But doing my best to become a hillbilly and raise my kids that way too.
Yeah. It's one of those things. Just growing up, me and Jordan Ann went to school together the whole time, all through. And, she was always the popular girl, the athletic girl she was always so friendly. And then seeing her families and big, and her parents were, I don't remember. Obviously there was a time they were married when we were kids, but I don't remember it. And just kind of looking back and seeing how, with both sides of her family being, business owners and in the restaurant business. So you didn't realize how much you appreciated, like they would feed the team a lot and they would always be there. And it was like, but they were also, you always saw that they were so much about family. And it was like, you didn't know it got to a point, and where it was like, they were like one big family when they were with Jordan Ann and Rob, because Rob was just a year older than me. And it was just like, that's Jordan Ann's mom's side, that's the dad's side, but they're all here together and getting along. And so that was something that was just always like, I hope that I never, ever have to experience that. Like, nobody wants to have a family split, but as I got older, I was like, you appreciate that people can get along for their kids.
Yep.
And that was special, because it was like, I genuinely was like, no, that's like, I didn't know which side of the family Alex was related on. You know, it was like at first, and then there's just connecting the dots. And so that was something I always appreciated. And just something, I mean, I guess we've known each other for, I don't, when did you come in town? I forget.
So we graduated from Wilmington College around 2012. And so I come down 2 summers before that, 1 summer before that, and worked on the family farm down here and spent the summer and then went back to college. So maybe just like in between our junior and senior year of college, maybe. And I was around, you know, the whole summer. And then we graduated. It was like, okay, I'm kind of have a job lined up going back to Central Ohio. And Jordan M's like, hey, you're not, you know, you're going to come to Hillsboro. And I'm like, we're got my apartment in Wilmington, but like, where are we going to live? And so we actually stayed at her mom's house there for a little while until we bought a house together. You know, I was with an operations management degree looking for that ops job and knew I was going to have to go to Cincinnati or Dayton. And frankly, at the time, it was like, okay, I still have never really filled out a job application. It's kind of been relationship, you know, started baling hay when I was 11 years old because a family friend was a farmer and needed help, you know, and it kind of went from that, and then worked for a good friend's dad that had a specialty gas, steel cylinders, cryogenic cylinders, did that kind of stuff, and kind of went in. And so what I learned was I didn't have the experience that was going to get me into like an entry-level management position, even though I had a degree. And so my mother-in-law saw it as an opportunity to go, hey, if you want experience, we'll get you experience. Have you ever fried chicken?
Yeah.
And I'm going like, I've never worked in a restaurant in my life. I had no idea. I knew there was a great opportunity there. There was a great opportunity to be useful to the family. And at the time, my wife's older brother was still in school. I don't know that he really had plans to come back to the family business. Maybe he was thinking about traveling and maybe even pursuing a higher education. My wife's cousin, a male, a couple years younger, kind of, feel like, way back when, maybe had different plans too. And so there was kind of this opportunity of like, there's going to need to be some leadership that's growing through the family. And so I saw that opportunity. I'm like, okay, I'll make this short-term sacrifice and go and learn the restaurant business. It wasn't like I was starting in an office. It was like, hey, here's a hat, go to Chillicothe for the next 6 weeks and cook chicken every day for 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right. And do this. And you go through that training role. And so then I think maybe that's where we probably originally met was Hillsboro KFC, right?
Yep.
And so, I was kind of on my training plan. So that would have been 2012, 2013. Yeah. It's hard to believe it's 13, 15 years ago now.
It feels like time flies, and it's truly, as we get older, it gets faster and faster. And that's something I was thinking about the other day. I was like, one of the things I remember most I worked for the family for, I think 12 or 13 years. That was all I knew. That was what I thought I was going to end up doing forever at some point. But I was at that weird stage of like everybody else, this was just a high school job. And then it was like, you move up in management or you're I was 22, 23 at that time. So, I remember hearing them say that Jordan Ann's boyfriend is going to come work with us. And I'll admit, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. Right. Like he's going to come in here and think like he's better than us, or he, has, because being with the family, he is, he's not going to get his hands dirty. He's never going to do this or do that. I'll tell you what, brother, I was mistaken because you came in and I thought, well, he's going to be standoffish. That wasn't the case, and this never has been. You've been a guy who's always going to shake everybody's hand and talk to everybody and treat them the same, and that's something that I definitely, a big respect I have. But you were in the kitchen with us. You were washing dishes. You were taking grease out. You were greeting people. Everything, and it was like that was also another thing I respected about the family. Like anybody who was coming in, like that was where you started. Yeah, like you had to start from the ground up. Obviously, the process was different, but that's part of being in the family. But there was no direct route to the top. Right. And it wasn't a quick thing. And I'm sure that you can relate to that, working, 50-hour weeks and getting thrown in Westchester or, other Obets. I still don't know where Obets is, but
you don't want to know.
But I heard a lot about it, and I'm just like, so that's something that, I've always appreciated, is like, he's not you know, you get business owners and their kids come in and it's like, this is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like it was never that way with anyone in the family. And that was something I always appreciated and respected about the family.
Appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
It means a lot. And, you know, frankly, at the time, it was like the humble medicine that I didn't know I needed.
Yeah.
You know, I've had some success through high school and sports and, you know, that kind of stuff. And it kind of gives you a little bit of an ego and a big head. And then you go through college and have some success and, you know, fit in and those kind of things. So you get this kind of false perception and what reality is. And then you get out there in the real world and it was like, okay, I'm glad. I say the KFC time was like the most fun I never want to have again. It was the humble medicine that I needed to go down there in Chillicothe and work beside some guys that have had real struggles in their life, that don't have support from their family, that maybe have been in some trouble. They're not looking at it as a career path. They're looking at it as a job, just, you know, to be able to kind of get by. And it really, you know, working side by side with those folks to be a human and connect with them on what they're dealing with. And, you know, and then, you know, had the kind of the work ethic from early on. It was like if you were going to get the opportunities to bale hay for the guys, like you had to be able to pull your weight, right?
Yeah.
And so never been afraid to get my hands dirty or work hard, but at the same time, it's like in that environment, very challenging, stressful, dealing with the public, that, you know, so surprising how people act over food and how long they wait and this and that, and just, you know, and, you know, you're working nights and you're working weekends and you're working holidays, and when all your friends are having fun, you're working, man, and you're in this box, this hot box of, you know, hot grease and chicken and people rushing in and you know, all that kind of stuff. It gives you an opportunity to kind of not feel sorry for yourself. You know, you might have those moments through it, but it's like, you know, you get the opportunity to kind of work through that with yourself, trial by fire.
It changes your perspective a lot when working in the, you know, food service, when somebody messes up your order, about how you want to handle that, because we all make mistakes. I mean, it happens every day. I mean, if you go through a day and you didn't make some type of mistake, you're doing better than me. You're living a different life than I am. And so it just makes you have a little bit more appreciation for what those people are really doing. And it's like most of the time, those are high school kids that are back there, you know, working for gas money,
Right.
working, you know, so they can take their girlfriends out, you know. They're not doing it on purpose. They're just, you know, it's how you react to that is huge. And I think that it'll give you a whole new appreciation. I say everybody needs to go work in a restaurant of some fashion, because it will make you appreciate. It'll give you a little bit of humility and swallow your pride and realize, like, you don't have to, the whole squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like, that's the way the world works, but you don't have to act that way. So
you could be the person greasing the wheel, if, you know, the right wheels per se. That makes me think about my role as a father. My kids are beyond blessed with opportunities, and just, you know, I don't want them to have that false perception in reality. And, you know, it's now that we're out of the restaurant business and that's not an option necessarily to kind of have that dynamic the way we did, I agree. I would want them to work in an environment like that where, you know, you're not special, right? There's no gimmies, there's no freebie. It's just, you know, you get to come in here and be a part of the team and serve the customer and be a part of something. And it's not all about you, you know, and to give them those experiences. And you're not perfect. You know, you try and you realize things as things are moving forward, sometimes a little bit more prepared, sometimes a little bit more reactive to it. But the sentiment is still the same, that, you know, that you want to raise your kids that way. And I feel like a lot of people that I connect with have that same desire. You know, they see the world similarly. And I think there's others that want to, and they just didn't grow up in the country. They grew up, you know, they grew up in a different world that I don't understand as much, and you may not either, growing up in a rural area and spending most of your life in a rural area. And so when I get out there and I have, you know, colleagues and friends that did all they've known as city life, it's kind of a little bit of a culture shock. But what I realize is these guys, you know, it appeals to them. The real things that we do out here in the rural area, hunt and fish and farm and work and manage properties, and just, you know, the things that we find ourselves enjoying to do, or just the responsibilities that we have. Like, their goal is to be able to earn enough that they can do that too.
Yeah.
You know, that, maybe not all the way out to Hillsboro. The convenience factor for them is still real, and they're so accustomed to being able to drive up the street and, be a part of the retail machine, you know, and, but they have this desire, tell them, I take people deer hunting to get, to harvest their first deer. And they're like, you take me? And these are 35, 40-year-old men, and I'm going like, I take a lot of kids, and I kind of prioritize that. But I'll
if I run out of kids to take, sure would. We'll take you, buddy.
I would do that.
Yeah,
I would do that for the entire season. I'm growing more passion in guiding and hosting that, and it's just kind of a function of time, because in that my wife and kids still come first, and so as the kids get older, there's more activities, there's more responsibilities, there's more sports, all that kind of stuff that kind of cuts in to that time and that, just availability. But, I make time this year. I think, I don't know, I probably had 3 or 4 people come in and get to harvest their first doe, and they get to, whether they actually help me process or they watch it, watch me field dress, take it down to the processor, get their, summer sausage and their hunter sticks and their jerky, and, and they get to go like, I did that. I didn't have to work for it too hard, got to show up, and Seth set me up on this. And we typically, we hunt together in a box blind. And so we get the opportunity to connect like this, and have, quietly, but have conversation. And, it's meaningful. I
feel like that's one of those things where you talk to people from the city and they're like, I would love to do that. Or it's like, if they do that in the moment, they're like, some of those things, whether it's hunting or, cutting wood or whatever, you're like, this is actually work. But if you want to come help out, if you want to experience this whenever, bring your friends. Yeah. Because we got a bunch of wood to cut.
We got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
But you feel so good after you accomplish it, right?
Yes. I mean, it's like, I don't want to just be, I've struggled with it a lot of times, and I'm just like, I got to find something to do. There was one day I literally Alyssa got so mad at me because I'm like, I don't want that tree in our front yard anymore. And I started cutting it down. She was going to kill me. And I was like, well, we'll just plant. I want to plant a new one for the girls. Like, we'll plant one together. Yeah. And that's how I sold her on it. So it's nice just I still have that in me, even though living in town and, we still have the family farm. I try to spend as much time, and there's always something to do out there. Yeah. It's, if I ever need my real fill, there's something to be fixed or cleaned up, or, there's hay to take out or cows to move or something of that sort. So it's nice to have that. You don't know how good you got it until, something like that's not available anymore. And that kind of scares me. So I try to appreciate, and I try to let my grandparents know, because it's theirs. Like, I say our farm, it's their farm. I just get to go there.
It's family farm.
Yeah. At any point it could no longer be. Mm-hmm. So, it's nice having that. And like you said, that's cool that you do that, and just kind of where I started with everything. And of course we get way out here in left field, which happens all the time. I do it all the time, but thanks for coming on. And I've always wanted to tell you that story, but I never wanted to be like, hey, Seth, have I ever told you this? So I was like, perfect time right now. So, I definitely respect you for that.
And that's mutual, right? I mean, coming in to my wife's town where everyone knows her, that knows her family, I knew there was a stigma that I was going to have to kind of overcome a little bit of like, who's this guy coming in? Almost like, I hope nobody takes this wrong, but it's almost like, this is our girl. This is our home girl, right? And you're this outside guy. Like, we don't know you. Are you going to pass the sniff test? And, some I maybe still have it, right? And that's for what be everything to everyone. Just try to be myself. And there were times in my early and mid 20s that I was probably a lot harder to enjoy, respect, being caught up in being a selfish person at that time. And so still have those tendencies for sure, but I feel like it's a lot less.
We're all always growing on something. Yeah. So I've never had that. And I was never like this guy, the outdoor dad.
The outdoor dad.
You're going to think on that in this podcast. You're going to listen to it and you'll be like, it's actually a lot better than I thought. What do you think about me starting a podcast?
I don't know, dude. I think you have a unique ability to host, right?
Yeah, I'm really showing. We've done an hour and 15 minutes, I think. And I've I've had to stop us, what is that, 4 times now? It's usually not this bad. I mean, obviously being here this place is awesome, but I'm going to blame it on that.
Yeah, man. Right. Different place. Just moving all your stuff, setting all your stuff up. And I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, no problem.
So,
so obviously we've talked about, how we met, what you used to do. Obviously you're out of the chicken business. What is it you're into, or what do you do for work now?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, frankly.
Me too.
No, I really enjoy what I'm doing now, and I didn't know that I would. It's not something I sought out, but I'm serving as a business broker, if you want to put a term on it. Basically, it's, a small business to very low middle market M&A advisor, sell side representation. And so someone builds a business, they want to sell it, comparable to like a real estate agent or a realtor. We do the valuation work, we do the marketing work, and help those business owners sell their business. I've been working with a good friend for about 2 years now on that. And again, we're really like just a relationship thing. This gentleman I connected, 10 years ago, probably, when I was in the insurance business. He was a client of mine and we became friends. And then when I started my own business, I had the bid FTA locations in Hillsborough and Chillicothe and Wilmington, and really enjoyed doing that. Man, I miss that. That was a cool thing. It's a shame that it didn't continue to grow and thrive, but Sean and I had a lot of fun with that business. But this gentleman that I'm working with now was my business attorney. He's been a business attorney in Cincinnati for probably close to 20 years, and I bought the business brokerage 3 or 4 years ago. And so when I was exiting that, he's like, "What are you going to do now?" I'm like, "I don't know, but I'm not employable. I've got this taste of entrepreneurship, and I will do whatever it takes to provide for my family, but I would really prefer not going back in the insurance business. I prefer not to go into corporate America. I'd like to, so I'm going to, I was thinking through the opportunities of starting a local business and, just a service business, or even buying a business." And he's like, "Well, in the meantime," he's like, "That's going to take a little bit of time. So in the meantime, why don't you help us out with the brokerage? You'll grow your financial acumen." I'm an operations guy. I didn't take a ton of finance classes, can do the basics, not in depth, not like the true financial guys can. And that's a big part of it. And so he's like, you can grow that part and then just understand the M&A space a little bit better. And I'm thinking, man, that sounds like a lot of time behind a desk. That sounds like a lot of time, frankly, dealing with challenging folks, and kind of rhymed to me with the insurance business a little bit. I had someone reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, did you end up joining that? Because I'm thinking about selling my business and I want you to help with that." And I'm like, "Okay, like, here we go." So I reached out to Cole and was like, "Hey man, I've got an opportunity, maybe a great time to make this a little bit more formal, and we'll work on this." And so that's been a couple years ago now. And so it's interesting, it's challenging, and what I love about it most is getting to connect with these folks that have built these businesses, to hear their stories, right? Talk about a podcast, to be able to get some of these guys in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, and to hear how they got this started, how they made it through tough times in their business, the breaks that they got, the relationships that they built, and all that kind of stuff is really what energizes me through it. And then on the buyers, we're selling a business right now where I've had over 50 calls in the past week and a half with prospective buyers for this, and all of those, well, most of them have really cool stories as well. And so it's cool to be able to connect with them and hear their stories and stuff too. And so that's that's what I'm currently doing. So I'm very much an entrepreneurial spirit, and think that, I'll probably try to pair what I'm doing now with something more operationally focused in the future too. Yeah. But it's God's plan, right? Yeah. Where does he want to point my feet? Where can I provide service, and what's going to provide for my family? And so that's, without getting into all the boring details that no one wants to hear about, right? That's kind of what I'm up to now. But if we do a podcast in a year or two, you never know.
Yeah. That's one of those things, like you said, it's not, if there's anybody who can make that sound interesting, it's you. And like break it down. Like, I feel like you can, that's probably one of the unique things that the guy you're working with is wanting you, because you're so relatable to so many different people, and being able to, like, talking to me about like finance stuff and real estate brokerage and, buying out. And I'm like, you're gonna have to dumb that down for me. You're gonna have to dumb that,
Oh, me too, man.
So, how are you based out of? Is the company based out of Cincinnati?
So, yeah, traditionally, the brokerage has been around for about 35 years. The founder is in his 80s, and he's still involved in the business, but he served the tri-state for, the last 35 years. And so most of our buyer network's there, but we'll stretch out, and we're looking to move into some different new markets and that kind of stuff. And so I'll play my role as general manager of the firm, as business development, as broker, all those kind of things. And, it could very much be my opportunity to, to mentor, to share the gospel with people as well too, and sensitive about that, right? But there's, just, it's cool to be able to connect with folks. But I sit in Hillsborough. I have an office here, and so I travel for opportunities, but I don't have to go to an office in Cincinnati.
Yeah, that makes it nice.
Sit 5 days a week or drive back and forth every day. Just when there's, excuse me, when there's more, more opportunities.
Yeah.
But a big goal of mine is to serve local business owners, right, in rural areas that are underserved. So folks that are here in Chillicothe, Wilmington, Courthouse, you name it. I'd love to connect with more, because there's a lot of great businesses here too. I don't believe there's anyone local serving as a business broker. Some real estate agents do kind of take that on too and pair the business with the real estate if that's a play for them. But it'd be others coming from the big cities out here to represent. And so I'd love to connect with more of them as well. But
how does that? You said you've taken over 50 calls, and I'm sure that it's nice working remotely, but it also makes you available remotely a lot too. So the ups and downs of the technology is nice to have. But how does that, you keep that work dad balance and work husband balance, where it's sometimes being available all the time is not the best?
Sure.
How do you balance that out, and just balance any of your time for your kids and your work? And
great question. And I feel like sometimes I do better than others. This past couple weeks with this opportunity, it's taken a lot of time and a lot of my focus and energy. I was at the office last night until about 9, trying to wrap some things up. It's not typical. I don't like to do that. We very much value our time around the dinner table. I enjoy being as active as possible, to be home, to do the not glamorous stuff, right? To do my chores that are my responsibility, to help my wife with her chores and those kind of things, and run the kids to activities and sports and coach sports. And so there's kind of seasons there, I think, and the season that I've been in here for the past couple of weeks has been like we're going to have to make a little bit more sacrifice around the house, because I'm going to have to focus on this. And it's it's a big opportunity. The way that we earn our money, the way we earn our living, is to make successful transactions, and we only do a few of them a year, right? And so in this busier season, it's okay, how do you balance? And that's been paired before that with a lot of travel too, some personal travel, some work travel for both my wife and I. And so it's like, how do you, my wife and my kids come first. And, the gentleman that I work with, he understands that. He's got a family, his kids, his family comes first too. He doesn't have as many hobbies. So that, that pulls, and that's another balance piece. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, me with that part of it, I learned that as a husband and a father with kids that are at the age now that they're busy in their own activities, that it's like, okay, if we're not doing a family activity that's also my hobby together, and I'm doing something off on my own, that it's probably pretty selfish, right?
Yeah.
But we still have to have that to energize us, to have something to look forward to something to pour into that's healthy. And for me, that's become hunting. I have golf clubs, but they've been in the storage now for a couple years. I didn't play at all last year, and never played a lot, but like, I'm not going to let that kind of get in the way. You know, maybe some other hobbies, I don't know, but for me, it's been hunting. And there's only a couple times of the year where that hunting is really focused on what I'm pursuing, and not, about taking the kids and about taking others and that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of another part of the balance. A guy that I talked to here recently was talking about, like, picturing a stove, and you have 4 burners on the stove. And if you put, your faith, your family, your finances, and your fitness on all 4 of those burners, like, a very unique person that has everything really laid out and prepared and planned can execute at a, good level on those things. But all the systems and processes have to be in place, right? And then, like, life happens and you get punched in the face and you're just reacting to stuff, right? And so, for me, I'm not as like technically planful, but in my mind, I've kind of had my priorities set of just kind of being able to navigate through. And again, really the person you should ask that is Jordan Ann on how well does he execute with that? Because the sentiment's one thing, but to actually follow through and to execute, I don't know what the actual percentages of, like, how good does he do? But I know that compared to 5 years ago, definitely 10 years ago, my priorities are much more in line with serving the Lord, serving my family. If I do anything that, like, routinely that could be looked at as selfish, it's trying to take care of myself, from a health and wellness standpoint. And so, I'm not that I don't work out every single day, but I enjoy getting up early, having quiet time, read my Bible, just drink a little bit of coffee, get out, work out here in this barn that we're in right now, and then go forward in my day. And it's like, if you're selfish early, you can be selfless for the rest of the day. Like, you got to fill your cup up to pour into others, kind of idea. And I do think there's something to that. If you wake up 5 minutes before you have to leave and you just roll, and your cortisol's high and you're reacting all day, then, it could be a recipe for failure. But people are different too. I know some guys that, like, they thrive in that, and they're very simple and they don't overcomplicate things. My brain would overcomplicate stuff and create problems that aren't even there if I don't challenge myself and kind of get that out of the way a little bit, right? Yeah.
I feel like I always say I want to be a morning person, and I want to get up and work out and do this and do that. And my wife Alyssa does every morning. She wakes up before everybody. She reads her Bible. She does her Bibles. She follows along with, different podcasts and videos, and she takes that time to herself. And she was like, you should try to start doing that. And I'm like, I struggle so much being I'm always like, I can do it for one day, but I'm the opposite. Like, I'm the guy who wants to do all that stuff when everybody goes to bed.
Sure.
Where I've always been this way when the girls go to bed and Alyssa goes to bed. I don't know if it's like an instinct thing, but it's like, I have to make sure the house is secure. I have to make sure everything is in order. I don't like being the first one to bed, or, going to bed before, I want to be the last one. So it's always tough when Alyssa has, like, where she'll go out and do stuff, she does stuff with her friends and they're out late, or her and her mom go do the Broadway shows, and they've had shows and not home till 11 or 12 on a school night where they had to switch it. And I've had to, like, get the girls to bed and, like, lay down. And I'm one of those people. It's like, when it's time to go to sleep, I just lay down and go sleep. And that's part of the wind down process for me. So I try my hardest to stay awake, but I like the girls they're ready to go to bed, and I set my mind in bedtime mode. So I don't like that where I'm like fighting to stay up. And so, but it's always just been something I've had to do. And Alyssa doesn't understand. Sometimes she doesn't understand like why you can't just come directly to bed. And it's just like something I have to do. I have to let my mind wind down. In the first thing in the morning, she has to let her, that's how she has to jumpstart her day.
Yeah.
I mean, I am one that if I'm late, I don't give myself a whole lot of time in the morning, but if I'm late, it will throw off my day. So I don't like get up early, but I give myself an appropriate amount of time. So I'm kind of the opposite of you on that side of things.
Well, I think that's fine, James, right? I think that if you're taking that time for yourself, that it doesn't matter if it's morning or night, that if you're doing things that really do fill your cup up, hopefully they're healthy and positive things, right? It doesn't matter. It's each your own on that. That can be a little bit seasonal for us too. In the winter time, it gets dark so early. It's easy, where everyone's ready for bed at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, it's like,
kids are going to bed and want to, lay down and watch a movie or whatever at 7, and we're in bed sometimes by 8. And some people are like, "What? No, like I don't ever go to bed before 10.
Yeah.
It's like, that's fine. I used to be that way too. Right. And then the summertime, it's light. So, I mean, I'll be out doing chores and yard work and stuff until 9 o'clock, come in and eat supper at 9:30 sometimes, when I've got it's my one time to get stuff caught up because of the weather or how my schedule is or whatever. Some of it, you just have to be present and roll along with it and realize it's not the end of the world if you get off track a little bit. It's like I live by the 80-20 rule, and that's kind of grace oriented, and these are our values. This is what I think is important for me to execute on, and if I do it, I think things will go better for my family and for others around me, and I'll show up better, and it'll be but then there's times where someone needs you, right? And you didn't have that as part of your schedule. And I'm not that guy that's like, sorry, I can't, forget what someone told me one time. Like, essentially it was like, can't make time for you. But there was a more of like a business term around it. Like, can't block time out for you or something weird like that. And I was like, okay, that's not very human, right? You're in the matrix at that point.
I'm not asking to schedule a meeting.
No, we're friends, right? I thought we were friends, and I've got something that I want to share with you, positive or otherwise. It was like, I can't do that until Thursday it's like, okay. All right.
Like I was talking about a 30-minute phone call.
Yeah, I was just going to pick the phone up and call you.
Yeah.
And some people just, they're successful, they're busy, and they really guard their schedule and their time. And, I can't say that's wrong either, right? But I just, that's the 80-20 part for me is like making sure that I don't miss the point of everything. And if I'm praying for God to guide my feet in a certain direction, that might not be what I had planned. Right. I might need to move things around if something comes up to be, useful to others. And so, I think you started that with the balance, and back to the example of the stove. If all burners are on high all the time, can that even happen? Right. Can you run all burners on high? Is there enough fuel coming in to put that out, or does something have to cool off a little bit? And at that point, I think it's just healthy communication, right? Through this. And if you ask Jordan in right now, because of the workload and stuff that I've had going on, like I'm worn out, I'm more stressed, I'm more cranky, irritable. Like she's like dealing with me right now on that side of my personality. So don't think that I'm like peachy and like perfect, and great, all, but we get that in each other, and I kind of know what when she gets like that around, some things that stress her out a little bit, and just try to give grace and communicate and make sure that you're not dropping the ball in the big things. And for a while, it was like I went from not paying enough attention to my kids when they were younger, let's say 1 and 3, 2 and 4, and like they're going to spend time with mom, and I'm going to be able to do my stuff. And then we'll spend time as a family, or I'll spend time with them one-on-one. I'll do that. But I don't have to I don't feel the need to go to everything. And it went like the polar opposite coming out of that after realization. I was like, I got to be at everything. I got to do everything with them. I don't want anyone in public to just see Jordan Ann with the kids. And that's not realistic either, And so she took them to a church play last night, and I would have enjoyed it. Priorities were get this stuff done, and she understood that, and it was all, it's all good. I'm not going to feel shameful or guilty for not, but again, also just, knowing what those non-negotiable, those kind of sacred things, the really important stuff that need to be there, and to be able to get that dad time. I think it's important for boys and girls to get get time with their dads, and could potentially be kind of a systemic epidemic issue in this country right now. Is fatherhood, whether it's absent father, not physically present, not there, not here anymore, whatever, or even the super successful dad that's working all the time on his business, and he's got that laser focus, and that's what comes first, and everything else is like what's left over. I don't want to be that way either, right? It's what's the point of having success and money or the things that come along with that if you don't have deep relationships to be able to share that, and then relationships become very transactional, even in your own home. And we don't want that, right? And so, I kind of ramble. I'm sorry.
No, it's
my
fine.
brain runs that way.
I was just sitting there thinking about just thinking about knowing people who have, having the dad that is there all the time, but they may not have as much, because their dad, is at the feed mill, but he gets off at 4:00 every day. He doesn't miss anything. And then you have the dads who are super successful and their kids have everything in the world, but their dad, you never saw them. They had all the coolest stuff. They had, all the 4-wheelers and everything that they everything that they needed and everything that they ever wanted. And you thought their dad is the coolest, but they would tell you the opposite because their dad was never there. And like you said, we're kind of running into an epidemic, which there's a lot of absent fathers out there who are absent because they choose their hobbies and what they're doing, or, they choose their vices. And then you have the ones that put work first always. And that's nice because we never go without, and we always have the nicest stuff, and we go on sweet vacations and do all this stuff. But at the end of the day, you could ask most of those kids, they're like, I'd rather have my dad here and be at home. So that's definitely kind of, I was just listening in and I was like, I got to give a little comment on that. But I know that Jordan works from home. She works remotely as well, too.
Yeah, she has to travel every now and then for work, but not frequently.
Yeah. And I know that since the kids have been in school age, I think your son went to school
until the first grade.
But you've chose to homeschool now.
Yeah.
Which that, like I said, working remotely makes that a lot easier. Being a teacher, there's nothing that sounds easy about homeschooling your kids. It's like, so just kind of tell me, how's that dynamic work out? I know that you guys have kind of a different way of doing things, and you're kind of doing trying to do things differently.
Yeah. Well, I think it starts with our family values, right? And wanting to make sure that we build a really strong foundation of, what we think is important. Now, others might look at that and go, no, you're missing it. And that's fine. It's not for anyone else, right? And not to say that we're, maybe we're not doing it right and we'll figure it out later.
Like I said, they're your kids. Whatever way you think is right is right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all on you and Jordan Ann. And
so in that decision, it doesn't root from anything negative. There wasn't, a falling out with the school or school system or any negative feelings about anyone. It was like, we have this opportunity, this unique opportunity to spend more time with our kids when they're young. And we know that it's going to come with its own challenges, right? That, you know, being with them more, you're toughest on the people you're closest to, right? Just based on familiarity. And so you're going to have that pushback and you're going to, you know, deal with some of those things. And we've seen that some, but I think that Jordan and I have worked together pretty well on how we address that, and we get a little bit of support and check in to make sure that we're on target and that the kids aren't falling behind, because neither one of us were homeschooled. Frankly, when we were growing up, to put a negative stigma, but I feel like a lot of the kids that were homeschooled were backwards and kind of antisocial, and those families were and stuff, and that's very much not us. You know, we try to balance out the homeschooling with, you know, a lot of family friends that have kids our kids' age, and getting them together as much as possible to keep them consistently in activities and those kind of things. But there's no marriage to homeschooling necessarily, right? We might decide that, you know, our son's in the 3rd grade and 5th grade, 6th grade, he goes back to school. I don't know, right? You know, it just kind of, we'll see how things shake out. But I'm more of a homebody. I mean, I enjoy experiences and going new places and seeing new things and getting out of here a little bit, but like, I'm more of a homebody. I enjoy consistency and routine and just keeping my stuff organized and that kind of thing. My wife is a travel junkie, right? And so I think our son's kindergarten, 1st grade year, you know, he's on truancy for missing. You know, we're traveling, and we're, of course, you know, we've never really traveled without them. You know, we take our kids everywhere we go. And so it was like, well, you know, homeschooling will help with that as well. But you look at things so much differently, because when you're homeschooling and that your kids you're responsible for everything that they learn. It's not like, well, you should have learned that at school today, so why would I have to teach it to you, kind of a thing. Right? You take those, maybe, you know, and not saying this for all parents, but like in my mindset, the big shift was like, they're learning everything they learn, not directly from me, but kind of through me and who I connect them with, and curriculums and the actual homeschooling process. And then, you know, we went out to a family member's wedding out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming this year. And like, before we did that, we made it a part of the curriculum. Like, what we're going to do when we were there, what new things we were going to see and experience. And then you kind of debrief on it when you come back too. Yeah. And so you bring in not only the kind of the school-based curriculum, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic, right? But you also bring in these real-world experiences. And the goal for me would be like, okay, can at the earliest age possible find out what my kids love and are passionate about, and nurture that, you know, so they can genuinely go towards what they want to go to, not for the money, not for the wrong reasons, but like, you know, because this is what they actually, what God wants them to pursue, what they want to pursue. And when I look back on my life, I wish I would have kind of had that experience as well, because, you know, I compared what I saw people's lifestyles and was like, okay, this is the career path I want to go. I didn't, you know, much thought into it other than, what money you can make and the lifestyle you can have. And very quickly I realized, like, this isn't it. Yeah. And so then you back out and then you go into something as general as, you know, business. And what does that mean? You know, I learned some stuff, but I can't say it really propelled me on to the next phase. And so I just would want to kind of cultivate that opportunity for the kids, and we're doing our best.
Yeah. And I think that's something I definitely, like I said, I working in a school. I mean, I just, I follow what they tell me to do, and that's where I go. But I think it's something I always think about is, you know, all these curriculums, they're going to give you a sales pitch about how great this curriculum is and this and that. And they want you to follow it to a T. And something is, I don't think that there's a curriculum that can be suited. The curriculum that we use in this area shouldn't be aligned with the one that they're using in Chicago, Illinois. But they are, because we're sticking to this, and we all know it's financially based Like they're not going to make curriculums. And I think that they've kind of put more of, and when I say they, I don't know who the they is anymore. I don't understand how politicians are in control of what teachers do. It's like, you know nothing about being inside that classroom. But I think it's awesome that you're taking the curriculum and suiting it best for what aligns with your morals and your beliefs. And that's something I definitely respect. And I, you know, that could get testy if they let teachers start doing that, because, you know, you're not going to have the same morals and beliefs with every teacher. So I understand why they do some things like that, but I think I definitely love and respect that you guys are doing that and putting your own spin on it. It's, you know, like you said, you don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's what you believe. It's what you aligns with it. At the end of the day, he's going to be okay. She's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, the travel perks have to, it makes it nice, because it doesn't take long to get those truancy letters.
No.
For kids missing. It's just like, kids get sick a lot too, and it's like, well, they've missed 5 days, and it's like, yeah, that happens. That happens. And just, you don't always want to have to revolve around a school schedule. Me and my wife, that's all we wanted, because we're both teachers, but
Right.
we forget that a lot of times, that not everybody world revolves around a school schedule. Some people's mom work at the dollar store and they can't just leave. I mean, I've never seen more than 2 people at the dollar store, and that's at the busiest, and they're stocking and working like crazy. They can't just leave right now because their kid has a 99 fever and drop everything and have to get there, or, you know, stay home because you don't want them there. And there's a lot of that at school, and we forget that we don't all work on the same schedule.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think just to your point there, first of all, thanks for the positive comments and recognition. I appreciate it. And, you know, I don't think that anything in particular is right for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to meet people where they are, and the current schedules and things that they're dealing with. And it's looking for kind of highest and best use for your current situation and opportunities. And for us, again, being a little bit more flexible with our work schedules, with, you know, how our lives are oriented and stuff, it was like, okay, rooted in getting to spend more time with the kids while they're young, because we know that before we know it, they're going to be teenagers and they're going to be focused around their friends. And, you know, a goal would be that, you know, that we discipline and teach those manners and those really important things. And, you know, we're not really trying to be their friends right now. We're being their parents. So hopefully we can be their friends later. And it would be such an accomplishment if they're young adults and adults that want to be around us.
Yeah.
That want to come back and, you know, or stay here, or what, you know, that we get a meaningful relationship with them as they grow into adults. And so, you know, it's not, you know, about holding them captive or holding them back or anything like that. It's about, you know, really doing our best to say, for Jordan and I to be able to look at each other when they are, you know, teenagers, young adults, and say, okay, I don't either high five, we did a good job, they seem to be doing well for our standards, what we think is successful, or we did our best and we weren't distracted and selfish and were, I don't mean this the wrong way, but playing victim. And you can't do that. You just got to kind of go with the flow. And, you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anti-institution or any of that kind of stuff, but we just really value kind of our independence and freedom that we're so grateful to have, and have the opportunities to do this kind of stuff. And so we just kind of lean into it. And again, James, you know, it's not like we had this planned for years and then we executed it. It was like, do we want to do this? It seems to be more attainable. There's conventions and there's curriculums and there's people around here that we know that are doing it, that we can connect with, and seeing how it's going for them, for kids of different ages. And, you know, we just said, okay, you know, and really I got to give Jordan the credit, because I'm sometimes the one that gets these ideas and would like let them kind of pass. And so the things that really move forward in our family, it's like the seeds are planted and they grow and we move together. I think when, you know, some people will say that it's, you know, selfish, but sure,
I feel like when it comes to spending time with your kids and creating those memories, and they're still getting everything they need. Yeah, I am being selfish for my kids, because the point that you made about one day they're not going to have anything to do with us, it's hopefully going to be temporary. We've seen everybody go through some type of hormonal, when the hormones start kicking in, it's like, you're dumb.
Yep.
You don't know anything. And that scares me to death. The day that, and I know it's going to happen, but the day that, like, my girls don't come jump on my arms, or, they say, say I'm stupid, or they're in their room and they don't want to talk, and we're already catching some of the random tears and crying and being upset. The amount of times I've heard, and this is just little, my daughter Annie say, "You hate me." And it's like, no, I'm trying to do what's right for you, and trying to explain it to them. That's something we've kind of tried to teach them, and Alyssa have talked about, is some things they don't understand at all, and that's fine. But we've tried to, when they do get upset, or we do ask them to do something, or we, take something away or put a change, and they think it's just because we hate them, or because we're trying to, and it's only going to get worse on that. So we've tried to just be open with them and explain to them, yeah, I get it. It's almost 7 and you're not going to fully understand this, but this is why we're doing this. Yeah. It's for your safety. It's for this. It's for that.
It's tough love.
Yeah. And
right.
It's
what Grandma always said.
Yeah. And sometimes I don't want to say, I try not to say, because that's just the way that it is, because that's the only answer I ever got. And to give an explanation, but sometimes it's just the way that it is.
Sure.
Like you have to listen to your parent. Like you don't get to talk to me that way. Like, you're not going to disrespect me and then expect me to give you whatever you want.
Yeah.
So, that is kind of that excuse, but kind of put it in a little bit of perspective. But
I try to share the why, though.
Yeah, I try my best to understand why. And I also try to, like, when they do things that, some things are even, just basic daily things, but I try to thank them for that and tell them how much I appreciate. Like, if they know to pick up their room, or if they see that there's dishes laying around, and I've seen my daughter just go pick up things and put them in the sink, rather than just ignore that, I try to praise that too.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and that's something that I've tried to get better at, and tried to, Alyssa's, been supportive of that. And there's some things that she has that, I've tried to support as well. And I think trying to stay on the same page with everything. And sometimes, like you said, there are ideas that our wives follow, and I followed a lot of crazy ideas of what I thought was crazy in the moment, and some of them were of my wife's, and I think that's the key to a healthy marriage too. And definitely. I think it's modeling that for my daughters is like, I want to be the man that I hope they marry.